Hello, folks. I'm back already. It is Wednesday, the 22nd of November, the day before Thanksgiving. I hope you all have a good holiday tomorrow. If you have the day off tomorrow, if you have it off today, enjoy. Folks, I'm coming back because I get on a roll sometimes and I feel like doing this and I feel like it. I've also gotten some more music that I'll review, but not in this video. I will let you know that it is Mark Stanley. Mark Stanley, the guitar player who came to my attention through Carla Dereck. He sent me some music by his band Farquhar and by him. I can tell you this, I love it. So I want to put a focus on him in my next video. But I thought I would take a left turn and show some appreciation for a musician that I highly respect and love. And from my perspective, in my opinion, this man, what he's done, what he did with music, changed the world, and I have mad respect for him. And that's Miles Davis. Now, Miles Davis, as everyone, I mean, if you know about music, I'm happy to say that recently this year I did some public speaking at schools about diversity and excuse me. I often ask the kids questions, to try to get perspective. And one of the things that's real clear to me is how history is fabricated and it's not important, apparently. I ask a lot of things where you would assume that people would know these things, including children, that their parents would pass it on. No, they don't know nothing about it. But I asked, do you guys know who Miles Davis is? And most of them said yes. And that actually was a surprise, but a welcome one, because you should know who Miles Davis is, okay? Jazz trumpeter who, he was at the head of the pack when it came to the last major changes in jazz, from bebop to cool to electric. His discography is huge. I just have a fraction. I want to just show you a little bit of what I have by Miles Davis, and what I have is a fraction of what is out there. Here we have Miles Davis quintet with Cookin'. I'm not going to talk a whole lot about a lot of these. I'll talk about the ones that really stand out to me. But here we're going back to early days. One of the first Miles Davis albums I've ever owned was this one, Miles Davis Jazz Track. It's the soundtrack to a French film that he was hired to do, or a couple of films possibly. And I bought this through a writer, Will Smith, who's from Omaha, used to write for Downbeat magazine. Any of you old guys like me remember that jazz magazine? He had a friend selling a collection back at the end of the 70s, and he hit me and my dad up to make sure that we could buy some stuff, and I bought this from him. This is good jazz track. Here's one that can be found cheaply still, and I freely admit that one of the ways that I build up this collection is I have collector's items, but I have to look for stuff on the cheap. And here's one that I found cheap, Miles Davis in person, the Black Hawk. I'm going to keep going until I get to the ones that I really want to talk about. There are some major Miles Davis albums that I don't have, okay? I keep saying that because I'll say it so that maybe some of you who want to try to annoy me can try to annoy me. It's annoying when you show a bunch of records and the only comment you get is from the only comment you get is from someone who says, "Oh, but you don't have this one." What's that about? Really, what is that about? Especially when it's from, someone that I don't know. You get a hold of me to make that comment? Is that friendly? Is that nice? What is that? Sorcerer. Here we go. This is the one where the one that has the vocals by Bob Dereck. Up until Miles doing hip hop, he didn't work with vocalists. Iconic cover, good album, Miles in the Sky. You know, as iconic as Miles was, he was not treated well by his record company. And if you read any books about him, including, I forget the name of the one, there's one that's really good, I read it. He lays it out, and it's again the double standard. Columbia Records were making money, buku money off of Miles Davis, and they balked at giving him cash. They wouldn't give him cash, they'd give him stuff. They didn't want to give him money. That's wrong, people. I keep pointing it out because we're still dealing with this racist, classist, sexist way of thinking that really needs to change badly. Milestones, Miles Davis, the track Milestones, which is not on here, is as a standard. It's a jazz standard. I've played it a million times. Here's one that takes me back to childhood. My dad really liked this one and played it a lot. Played it to the point that as an adult, I can't really listen to it. He played it too much. Yeah, I agree that this is something that everyone should hear. Miles Davis's Sketches of Spain. I have an original copy. 6i. Deep Groove, on the label there, Deep Groove 6i. This is an original. Yeah, this is one that everyone ought to hear. There are those records people will say, well, everyone should hear that. Stuff like the Beatles and Stravinsky, Bob Marley, Miles Davis. These are people that everyone needs to hear. If you don't see Kind of Blue in here, oh, there it is. See, I know I got it on CD, on several CDs, but no, I got it. In a Silent Way, Game Changer, right about the same time that he made Bitches Brew. Miles Davis, Game Changer. You know, opening doors that were not open before when it comes to music. Here's one that I love. Tony Williams drumming and Herbie Hancock on this album, just fantastic. Fees de Kilimanjaro. Things are changing, okay? These aren't in order. And like I said, Miles Davis has a huge catalog. I only have a few. Miles Davis in concert, My Funny Valentine. The cat really was cool, and I'll go ahead and tell you this. Did I ever get to see Miles in concert or meet him? No. But I can tell you this. My dad knew Miles Davis. Miles Davis has been to my house when I was a little boy. Remember I was talking about Johnny Griffin? My dad was a musician, and this is all true stuff. My dad was also a junkie for a part of the time. So some of the people that would come around to me were kind of scary, you know, as a kid. And I know that Miles scored. My brother remembers him better than I do. I think Miles kind of scared me the day he came over, and that's why I don't have a good memory of Miles Davis. But Miles Davis has been to my parents' home. I've been in his presence as a child. Miles Smiles, the quintet. Yeah, if you don't know about jazz, you can start with Miles for sure. Most people will tell you, if you don't know jazz, start with this album, Kind of Blue. I would have to agree. It's like there's something about this album that is nearly perfect. Wow. I don't know what else to say. Miles did some great work with Gil Evans. So seek this stuff out. The stuff he did with Gil Evans. Once again, fantastic. Not a bad album in here. Someday My Prince Will Come. Okay. Here's one where it's old recordings, where I bought this ages ago, you know, as a budget album. So it's got him in his electric mode, but the music is back when he was playing with Charlie Parker. But it's still cool because there's a version of Bird of Paradise. The version on here, I don't know where else it's available, but it's one of my favorite versions on this particular album. Let's keep going. So my favorite period of Miles is when he went electric. And so this is all going to get mixed up here. I'll do them like this as we get to the electric. Another one, ESP. The covers. That was another thing about Miles Davis, that not only did he look cool, but he looked dignified. And so in a silent way, he was helping to dignify black people in a public way on his album covers and through his music. He was representing all of us. Miles Davis in Europe. And then here's the one. Here's the game changer. Bitches Brew. With that iconic album cover by Mighty Clarwine. The musicians themselves said that when they were making this album, they didn't know if it was good or not. They did not really understand what they were doing. It was only after the fact that it started to come into clarity. I just played this on the radio about a week ago, and it still sounds like it was just recorded, and this was done in 1969. That's quite a thing to say about a piece of art. Amazing. Here's one of my favorite, I keep saying that, but it's true. Live Evil. This is amazing. This whole album is just amazing. Energy, interplay, John McLaughlin, Jack DeJohnette, all the cats on here, Keith Jarrett, playing their asses off on this album. Miles Davis, Live Evil. Highly recommend this. I can still remember the first time hearing this with my brother when he bought it back in the 70s. And Charles Gamble, a drummer, came over. I can still remember the looks on my brother's faces and Charles's. We were like, what's going on? This is off the chain. Another one, great album. Jack Johnson, dedicated to the boxer. Another cool one where it kind of fell out. Miles didn't know what he wanted to do for the session. Billy Cobham and John McLaughlin, according to them, okay, I didn't make the story up. According to them, Billy just starts playing this beat. John McLaughlin starts to jam with it, as they're waiting for Miles. Next thing you know, they've got a groove going, and Miles comes out and says, just brings out this horn, starts playing. He tells them to record. And here we have this. Big fun. I love this album. These are more tracks from the Bitches Brew sessions. Love this album. And another fantastic. Psychedelic as hell. On the Corner. Miles Davis on the Corner. This album is so funky and psychedelic at the same time. Another one that just, again, when it came out in the hood, y'all know what I'm talking about, here in Omaha, this was like a number one. You couldn't hear it on the radio. There was no talk about it in the press, but amongst black musicians, and I do mean black, okay, this had us, we didn't know what to do. It was so good. And to this day, badass. Pangea, Miles Davis, live recordings. Great stuff, really raw. Awesome, 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 awesome. More stuff when he was just out there experimenting. I didn't like this for the longest. I appreciate it now. Miles Davis at Fillmore. For the longest time, I just really had a hard time with this. It captures him where he's just, this is what he did. He would just let the musicians go. And if something happened, it did. Sometimes something did. A lot of times on this particular recording, it sounds like they're just waiting to find each other. Another great live recording, Miles Davis in concert. Miles Davis. Yeah, like I said, I just have a fraction of his recorded output. One of the greatest musicians that ever lived, in my opinion. Got a couple copies of this. Agartha. Here's the US version, and then here's a reissue of it, but this is the way it came out in Japan originally. It was this great artwork. Live recordings, again, all highly recommended. Here we get into a period where he's kind of not as prolifically good, but still, Miles is Miles. Miles Davis, The Man with the Horn. This is pretty good. It's actually gotten better for me over time. Same with this one, Water Babies. This is good. It's good. it got to a point where it seemed like Columbia Records was just every time you turned around there was another Miles Davis album. So I think for a minute we were taking them for granted, and over time you realize how good they are. Here's one that made a splash commercially, and it's one of my favorites. I think it's great. Decoy. I play this one a lot, actually. Decoy. Tough. Someone had mentioned, probably a new viewer, that he wishes that I could play the music, and made a comment about talking about music is like, well, you probably never watched me before because I try to play music, but I've had my videos silenced because of copyright. So it ain't me, man. And here's the other thing. It's so simple. If you didn't know this, I'd like to think that most people have figured this out already. Almost all content is available online, especially when it comes to music. Virtually every record I show you here, all you got to do is open up another window on your computer, go to YouTube, do a search on it, and you can listen to it now on YouTube. All this music, okay? So you can hear all this music I'm playing as I'm talking about it. I just told you how to do it. This one is weak, but I have it. We Want Miles. Yeah, this is a weak album. Weak it is. This one is not. This one is good. Star People. Compilation of stuff. Miles Davis Directions. Love those glasses. And then these last two, Amandla. I like these. People kind of poo-poo these. Critics. Fuck them, This is when he was getting into the go-go beat that was happening out of Washington, D.C., if I get that correct. Was it the 90s, 80s? When was that? Let me see the date on here. 1989. Yep, go-go was happening. And so there's the go-go beat trying to be incorporated on this album. I like it. Then some people really trash this album, which I think is bullshit. Tutu with Marcus Miller. I love this album. Absolutely love it. Not about a year ago in one of the local record stores, one of the employees actually put some denigrating remarks on the cover as they were trying to sell it. I complained. I said, this is bullshit. Get that shit off of there. Miles, okay. Next up, I want to talk about Mark Stanley. That's coming up because the recordings, if you see this, Mark, your recordings are good, and it's just what I like, but I wanted to show the Miles. Okay, people, talk to me.